John Jackson. There's a lot of rags and C's in there. We got Rag Mama Rag. We got Salty Dog. I'm Going to the Promised Land. They're all in C, and they're all this exact same chord progression. Today I want to talk about why this key of C seems to be just designed for ragging with a fingerstyle guitar player. C. Welcome back to the series of alphabetical blues. This is part 3. We did the key of A, we did the key of B flat. I'll have those linked in a playlist below. Today is the key of C, a favorite for the fingerstyle ragtime guitar player. Rags, what makes them sound raggy, the syncopation, the thing that makes you want to shake your butt, as well as the harmony. The harmony is a little bit different in ragtime music. You think about like a normal key, you've got like a family of chords, sometimes called a chord family, sometimes called a key family. Like in the key of C, you'd have C, F, and G. You got your minors, E minor, A minor, and D minor. Well, with ragtime music, you have what I call rag families. Basically, just make them all major. Now, it's not as simple as just making a major. You got to know how to use them. And in jazz music, they call it going around the horn. Also call it a cycle of fifths. Rag and C is the perfect example of this concept of a cycle of fives. So we're in the key of C, but we move to an A chord. A is the 5 of D. D is the 5 of G, and G is the 5 of C. That's why it's called a cycle of fifths, or they call it going around the horn. It's just going around. It never ends. It's truly the song that never ends. So I mentioned in the very beginning, there's a ton of songs that use this chord progression, and you can do it in all keys, but we're going to check out John Jackson's version. He's such an underappreciated guitar player. So what's so cool about his version? It's the same chord progression over and over, but he builds his chord vocabulary every time he comes around. The first time through, he uses a long A chord, and then he goes to like just a stock D7, stock G7, his thumb is really heavy. It's kind of hard to figure out when he's hitting 2 strings and when he's not. Sometimes he's doing a steady bass, like a monotonic bass. Sometimes he does alternating bass. We don't need to worry too much about making like a carbon copy here, but just keep that in mind. He has a very heavy thumb if you want that like drive he has. Runs around that again one more time. He slightly changes it, but it's roughly the same thing. And then he moves up to his first variation, which is taking our A chord up to the 5th fret. He thumbs the 5th fret on the E string and the open A string kind of at the same time. And then he plays a triad above. If you can't do all that at once, I wouldn't worry about it. I would just get one or the other, either the open A string or the thumbed 5th fret on the E string. The other chords are a stock D7 chord, thumb over G chord, and then he moves to this really cool, like a bar chord kind of idea on the 5th fret. You don't see that a lot in country blues, and he thumbs the 5th fret, the 3rd fret, getting a really chunky chord there. Now, the second time through this variation, he plays roughly the same shapes, but he grabs new colors. So he has the 9th on this A chord. He holds that over his D chord, which you have to do this monster bar with your pinky. It's kind of like a Merle Travis kind of chord. Then he plays the 6th on this G chord, and he hangs onto that for the C chord. It's a beautiful sound. does here, he kind of makes like a variation sandwich. So he goes back to the first part, the open position chords, before moving to this really cool upper position chord starting on the thumb over chord on the 8th fret. They're super out of the box sounding chords, although they're not super crazy. So you've got like a rootless A7 chord here. You don't really hear that note. He doesn't really pick it, but you could. And then all you do is you take all these same fingers and you move them each a string. And that gets you like a rootless D, kind of like a D6 sound. And now this chord's crazy. He plays it like this. It's like, oh, it's like this. How does he play that? I can barely play it like he does. It's a G6 with a 9 in there. I would play that like this, because he goes up to this. Like, that's not too bad with this fingering, but he does it like this. Possible in both ways. I can't really do it that way. They're both going to get you the same sounds. That's kind of it. Of course, it's the song that never ends, so that's only half the performance, but that much is tabbed out over on the Patreon along with the slow play along, and even that is almost too much. There will also be a longer form lesson diving in a little bit deeper into these concepts. Next will be the key of D, so keep up with the Alphabetical Blues over on the Patreon if you're looking to dive in deeper, and we will see you. We'll see you at the next one.